the best kind of hobby that anybody can have. And when I found out that my friend Joyce Foley was a quilter, I too got renewed interest in the topic and have been collecting books on it, and so I've yet to take a stitch. But hopefully, with all of you here tonight, urging on those of us who would be quilters, maybe we can get more of us going. But Joyce is a dear friend. She is so active. I couldn't even put in our newsletter all the things that she has done. She has been in every organization, as you saw in the newsletter, that we can think of. It's just amazing how wide her influence is in this community, and in fact the greater Cincinnati community. And I'm not going to repeat all the things that I wrote about her in our newsletter. You've read those, and I'm sure many of you know her as well. She's a member, longstanding and past president of the Florence Women's Club, and so many Women's Club members are here tonight, and from Betty Carter Morgan Women's Club and perhaps others. And I thank you all for coming. And we really are going to be in for a treat tonight, in spite of our little original glitch in which we are panicked. Everything's working, right? All right. So I give you, without further ado, our friend, the greatest quilter in Boone County, Joyce Foley.
And before I get started, this is my love, Butch Foley. And I wanted to say that these are not quilt books that I've written. They're rather reference books that I use for getting ideas on quilt blocks and the Quilt Barn Trail as well. Before I begin in what you call my talk, I haven't had a chance to see so many people who are involved with the Barn Quilt Trail in one place. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank people that I haven't been able to in public. So, first of all, how many people here have a Barn Quilt Trail? Show of hands. All right. You've made this all possible. Obviously, without you, there would be no Barn Quilt Trail. And a big thanks to my husband Butch, who designed our website and made 61 sets of trim and frames for the boards. When we first started, he asked, how many boards do you think you're going to have? And I said, 22. And as of now, we have 78. I hasten to add that I have only painted 44. And Renetta and Dick McBride have painted 17, and 17 farmers have themselves painted their own, but are members of the Barn Quilt Trail. Also, we don't get paid, and all the monies are run through the treasurer of the Florence Women's Club, just for your information. Are there any people from Florence Women's Club here? Yes. We'll talk a little bit more about them later. And is there any chance that anybody from Owen Electric is here? Well, without them, when you get these boards, they're 4 feet by 8 feet, and a barn is tall, and I'm afraid of heights, and there's no way that I could hang a board on my own. So I called Owen Electric 8 years ago and talked to someone about what I had in mind, and they said, we'll get back to you. By the next morning, they had gotten back to me and said that they would do it, and we are entering our 8th year that they have been hanging boards for us. So I wanted to give them a thank you. I did want to say their names, because if any of you know them, when you see them the next time, you can say that they were royally thanked. Brian Knoll, Bill Sams, Kenny Berkemeyer, and Joe Schmide. So those are the four that, any combination of three have shown up for each one of these hangings. Are there any people here from the Licking Valley Quilters Guild? Yes, thank you. And I'll talk about you all more later on. And are there any people here from Stringtown Quilters? All right. They allow us to display a quilt board at each National Quilting Day show. And Jane Farner and I do that once a year, and so we really appreciate that. We can get the word out to a different crowd. I saw Gary Wilmhoff here. So, hi Gary. He's been a tremendous help from the start, sharing construction instructions with me and giving us painted costs from the Florence hardware store. He's the one who suggested the price, $350, for an 8-foot by 8-foot board, because I had no idea. And it obviously really depends on how many different colors of paint that you choose. But a prospective buyer wants to know how much it costs before they give me their decision. And I understand that totally. I want to know how much it's going to cost me as well. The 4x4 board costs every bit of the $100. There's nothing left. But from a $350 8-foot by 8-foot board, we will use what money is left over for a banner for the Memorial Day parades, pencils with our website on it to be handed out at the senior picnic and other places, and the second printing of 2,500 of our brochures. And again, we ran out of brochures. I had no idea there was going to be this big a crowd. So if you write your name down on that yellow piece of paper and address, I'll be more than happy to send you one. And here's a big thanks to Herb Works, who owns Boone Kenton Lumber, and he has had his people deliver these boards to my house for the last 8 years because we don't have a pickup truck. And so they're just, I don't know how to tie one of those on my car. I think you take flight when you do that. Thanks to the Boone County Garden Club for helping with publicity. I see some people down there. Thank you. Thanks to the Community Press for covering all 78 boards. And after the first one, all the rest were in full color. I appreciate that very much. Thanks to Toyota, Bank of Kentucky, Ann Hood, Fisher Homes, and Mary Marksam for their financial support. A big thanks to Matt Becker of the Boone County Planning Commission, who cleared the way for us with the Zoning Commission. And I hadn't even thought of that, but I think they were afraid that we would put a board up, something like, drink RC Cola. And he also helped me round up some of the very first board owners so that I would have something, drive down on Hathaway and you'll see a board and you know what I'm talking about. And I want to say that many of these blocks have several names. I'm going to use the name most familiar, as far as I can tell, to Kentuckians. For example, the block Sunbonnet Sue is often called Little Dutch Girl in Kentucky. In fact, I'm working on one of those right now in the basement, and it's a 4x4. I don't do much in the winter because I can't get those 4x8 boards down in the basement. So I've taken off since November, and I'm about to start again. The first thing I'm going to do is ask for a show of hands of everyone who has at least a quilt in your homes. Oh, am I talking to the right group? Wow, that's wonderful. Tonight I'm going to be filling you in on the National Barn Quilt Trail as well as our Barn Quilt Trail. By the way, the term trail is a misnomer. There really isn't an actual trail that you walk. It's just an imaginary one. Perhaps you could call it a barn quilt route in all 40 states. The brochure has a map which will help you with our county. And you can look it up on the internet and you can find, I think Grundy, Iowa has 100 boards, so there's a lot you can find on the internet. When folks come across an article in the Boone County Recorder about the Barn Quilt Trail, they usually visualize someone nailing a real quilt to the side of a barn and say, why would you want to do that? Or they think someone is selling quilts out of their barn. However, the quilt block, frame, and trim are screwed onto the barn and are made of wood. If you live east of I-75-71 in our county, you may not have seen any of these quilt blocks because mostly western Boone County is where the barns are, and therefore our boards. You can see a map of their location in the description. Oh, here we go. For those of you who didn't get one, you can see, you can't see what's on it, but there is a pretty good sized map here so that when you're driving around, you'll be able to find your way. And you do want to have, you know how people go 70 miles an hour on these little crooked roads? You do want to have a navigator with you so someone else is doing the reading while you're driving, believe me. Why do this project? Boone County was once a rural county, and in the 40s, more than half our population lived on farms. I'm going to say that again. In the 40s, more than half our people lived on farms. It's down to 1% today. So our children don't know what life is like on a farm, and most of their mothers are working, and they've never seen someone create a quilt. We're hoping that when a youngster sees one of these quilt boards, they will raise questions, and there'll be an opening for mom or dad to talk about the good old days. It can start a conversation between generations. And to me, quilts and barns are two of the most celebrated and recognized symbols of rural America. Tying the two together is what the Barn Quilt Trail does. The Florence Women's Club, the original sponsoring group, wants to provide public art for all to enjoy, Boone County residents and visitors alike. Many people view the boards like a scavenger hunt, like we had the pigs, and Pat, pardon me, checking off the boards as they are located. Something like the pigs in Cincinnati and the horses, Lexington or Louisville? Yeah, Lexington, and there were cows in Wisconsin. I'm thinking Madison, Wisconsin. So like that. And the website and the brochure do have GPS information to make locating the boards easier. And they are open 365 days a year, rain or shine, and are free to view. What more can you ask? A good trip for when your aunt comes at Thanksgiving and you don't know what to do with her. So, back in 2001, Donna Sue Groves actually started the Barn Quilt Trail. She was reared in West Virginia, where she was used to seeing things on barns, hex signs, chew mail pouch tobacco, see Rock City. So it was obvious that she might think of something when she moved to Adams County, Ohio, and their farm had a barn on it. Of course, she said it was the ugliest barn she had ever seen, so she needed to do something. Her mother is an avid quilter, so she said, we'll put a quilt block on that barn. So she was talking to other people, it caught on, and the next thing you know, they had over 20 boards, sort of an open-air folk art gallery. Then it spread to the next county, and the next county, and the next county, until now it is in 40 states and Canada. Also today there are over 4,000 barn quilt boards up in the U.S. My hope was that Kenton County and Campbell County would follow us, but as far as I know, and I could be way off, but as far as I know, I think there are only 3 in Kenton County and 3 in Campbell County. But it's not too late, maybe they'll pick it up. I saw an article on this project in the Cincinnati Enquirer in 2004 and thought there was something that would be really neat to do in Boone County. But at the time, my plate was pretty full, and so I decided I just needed to put it aside for the time being. Then, at the September 2006 Florence Women's Club meeting, I was asked by the members what I planned to do with all my free time now that I wasn't president of the organization anymore. I told them about my dream of a barn quilt trail in Boone County, and seizing the opportunity, I asked them if they would be willing to sponsor this project. They agreed and gave me $500 seed money to get started. It was very helpful to have their backing, first because they are well known and well respected in the community, and also because they had just become a 501c3 designated nonprofit. Because of that status, I could go after grants. At that time, I had lived only 8 years in Hamilton County. That's where I lived before. In Boone County. If the farmers didn't know me, at least they knew the Florence Women's Club and their good works. Well, in addition to informing our locals where the quilt boards were, we wanted to attract travelers off I-75. The website certainly helped, and the brochure. I started a route of the libraries, the Extension Office, Dinsmore Homestead, AAA, Northern Kentucky Convention and Visitors Bureau, Cabin Arts Quilt Shop, Big Bone Lick State Park, a few motels, and others. I was hoping that we could put brochures in the 2 visitors centers that are here in Boone County, but I'm guessing because Kentucky is in such dire straits financially, they don't man those buildings anymore. I bet you didn't know that. Where the people were, that's closed, and they finally put a brochure rack in the restroom building. So that would have been the best way for us to get people from out of town, so I'm really sorry that that happened. Maybe as times get better, they'll open up that other building. We are listed in the Kentucky Arts Council webpage, which has been very helpful. And if we get the word out, we will be able to draw people in off the highway. There are over 20 million quilters in the United States. Quilters Newsletter magazine had a questionnaire, probably 5 years ago now, and it was over 20 million people in the United States who quilt. So they want to know where we are. While they're here, they'll buy gas, they'll stop at a restaurant, they'll go to the mall, they'll go to the quilt shop. So it's a good thing to have a barn quilt trail. We wanted to involve our youth too, and Tammy Grimes called us to ask if we could show her 4-H girls how to paint a board for the fairgrounds. They chose the Iowa Star quilt block and tucked in 4 H's in the petals. I sketched out the design for them and introduced them to painter's tape, and they did a fantastic job. And a local Boy Scout troop has volunteered to do a board, but sorry guys, I cannot imagine 15, 12-year-old boys with wet paintbrushes. I kept top of mind too the farmers who had taken part in the government tobacco quota buyout. Farmers were now looking for other ways to make money off their farms. Over a dozen boards are located on barns where the residents offer such activities as raising alpacas and selling the wool for yarn, raising hair sheep that don't have to be sheared, having a corn maze, selling plants and vegetables, selling maple syrup, conducting hay rides, selling honey, having a music festival, and so on and so on. In fact, there is an entertaining site that you might want to look at when you get home. KentuckyFarmersAreFun.com. KentuckyFarmersAreFun.com. It tells you all kinds of things about what's happening in farms in Kentucky. Obviously, I would need someone to hang the boards for me, and I've talked about that. From the beginning, I told the farmers that they could pick out their own quilt blocks and their own paint because they were spending good money, and I wanted them to be very pleased with it.